Item number 2, ARPA funding for water pollution control.
So, Mr. Chairman, just for the setting the stage for the future discussion items, I wanted to just remind the Town Council that we have elected to put aside $2,920,906 under the category of wastewater treatment. We have also allocated $468,000 to be used in fiscal year '24 for one of the WPC pump stations. So that was just an update in terms of people who are keeping track of numbers, and I do have that on the ARPA spreadsheet that will be distributed for the next part of your meeting. But you have the Director of Public Works and the Supervisor for Water Pollution Control, who can now talk to you about how some of that money may be allocated, as well as giving you a general update about the status of the projects that are there.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 3, Water Pollution Control Authority Project Update. With us today is Todd Mathewson and Public Works Director Donald Nunes. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Donald Nunes, Director of Public Works.
Todd Mathewson, Superintendent of WPC.
Where would you like to start?
You can start right from the beginning. Give us your update of where we're at and all the progress that has been made. Thank you.
His storied career, oh my goodness, we'd be here for a couple days. But good news is that we're just about ready to go out to bid for the Grape Brook Pump Station, which has been a long time coming. That is a relatively massive project, probably in the $2.5 million, $3 million range for projects. Quite detailed work, just feel, like the spec section of the thing that's going out is over 1,000 pages long to build this thing. So this isn't like this is a very complicated project involving many different disciplines and how to handle all that waste while still keeping the pump station running while we're upgrading it, and it is quite the significant project. And after that, we're going to be looking for engineers to start the Sparkle Street pump station, which is going to be in the neighborhood of $2 to $2.5 million as well to rehab that one. Similar circumstances, very complicated, trying to keep these things running. We can't ask the residents to stop flushing and using their facilities. So just, again, having all those things you don't think about put into a spec book and get it out on the street is really very complicated. So that's for the 2 major projects for the pump stations. Some good news with the WPCF upgrade. Right now, the permit has the multiple permits have been filed, and it's in Amtrak's hands right now. So we were about 2 weeks away. I just told Attorney Talberg we're about a couple weeks away from actually starting the berm, which would only take 3 to 5 days to do, and we need to finish that up before December. But everything is looking good right now. All the submittals are done. Everything is basically in line, waiting for that final signature to come back from Amtrak, which has been as Attorney Talbert can attest, it has been a challenge on multiple levels, on our level, but then the contractors have a whole different level of people that that Attorney Talbert and I don't even deal with. That's a whole separate part for the construction team that does that. So they're another layer that we didn't really know about how much that happened, what their involvement was. But once the people at our level take it and they send it down to people to get it done, that's, again, a whole nother layer of review and whatever. But it's taken almost 8 months since we got the go-ahead.
Wasn't it 3 years?
Pretty much 3 years. But the last 8 months or so have been quite a challenge. But there is, we're there. We're basically there. And when it starts, it's going to be over before everybody knows it, and we'll be done with the project. So on that end, I'll let Todd talk about some of the fun things we got going on down elsewhere.
Sure. It's been a very challenging year. We were given almost no notification that the town of Manchester, the last remaining facility in the state of Connecticut, is no longer accepting wastewater screenings or grit. This turned the entire state upside down. There is no place to take this. I have been able to secure 1 year for 2023 and it's a trial basis in a landfill in Massachusetts that'll take this product. The state is just put up their hands and they're walking away from it. I don't know what we're going to do after that. Hopefully they'll take it for a while. Our grit is considered a special waste. It's not a hazardous waste, but it's listed as a special waste in the state statutes.
Excuse me, Todd?
Yes.
Could you just talk into the mic, please?
sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So it's a special waste, and you can get out of the special waste category if you do certain things to it. Basically, you would have to run it through like a dishwasher type process, make it clean, then it becomes municipal waste. The problem with that, that's going to be very, very expensive. In the past, we would just call up and hire a contractor. They would come up with their vac truck. They would suck up all our grit out of our channels and drive it away. We'd never see it again. This year, we had to suck it up with our own equipment because nobody can take it. We dumped it on the wash down pad, and we had to attempt to dry it out ourselves because it has to pass a paint filter test before we could get rid of it one last time. So we had to do that in August. We did get a couple odor complaints. What we're going to do for the springtime is we're going to purchase a hoop house to put over our wash down pad. Then working with my staff, we think we can tie into the odor control building to get the odors down to suck air out of that temporary building we're going to build and dry our grit that way to get us through next year while we try to find a more permanent solution. A permanent solution would be to purchase equipment, but we're talking a multi-million-dollar upgrade to put a couple grit classifiers in there. This is not going to be cheap, and the engineering is going to have to be really good to get that to work. Our cake, we've been having issues with cake. We almost lost our place at the MDC. You no longer go out and bid and solicit bids to get rid of your waste. You're lucky to have a spot. They're down to 1-year renewal contracts, and our product has to be tight. The thicker we get it, the less we have to truck. It's cheaper for us that way. But if we go over 25%, they'll reject us in solids. So it's getting really tricky. We had one number that came back in our laboratory data. It was a high hit. It was an unusual number. I forget what the parameter was. But I had to provide them with 5 years worth of data to prove to them that it was an anomaly so they wouldn't throw us out in the MDC. Michael and I, our business manager, looked around. We went over 100, 200-mile radius. We couldn't find anybody else that would take our cake if this deal fell through. We were lucky we're in for another year. Even the sludge byproducts has become a problem. Maine is shutting down land application this month. So there's a lot of treatment facilities in New England scrambling. There's no capacity in any incinerators around. So these are just some problems we've been working through. On the good side, the new camera truck's coming this month. We were already scheduled training. And as soon as the training's complete, we're actually taking it up to Meadowlark because we're doing a lot of work up on Meadowlark getting ready for the roads project. We found that we TV'd the entire system, and we found a lot of deficiencies. We're replacing some broken manholes. We have to replace some broken sewer main. A lot of it we're going to be able to line to save the town some money. But now what we need to do is we need to go back. And I don't know if you're familiar with that area, but it's a very dense area. There's a lot of laterals there that we own. Some of them are Orangeburg. The very first, I think I was here a month when we had a sinkhole up on actual Meadowlark Drive itself I had to go take care of. It turned out it was one of those Orangeburg pipes. They were put in the 50s, 60s, 70s. It's basically a cardboard pipe conveying water. They don't last. We own that up to the property line. So at the end of this month, I hope to have our brand new camera camera truck with a trained crew where we can actually go up and not just inspect the lines, we're actually going to be able to shoot the camera up into the laterals, inspect our portion as well. That way we can go back and fix any broken laterals that we may find before we put the new roads in. That way we don't have to dig them up like a year later because we didn't see something. And let's see what else. Routine maintenance, we're swapping gravity thickeners. That's a big job. We have to do a major confined space. The gravity thickeners is where we pump all the waste product, thicken it up before it goes to our sludge presses, and it's all inside. So it's a huge tank. It's like a giant clarifier. We'll be putting guys in there. excuse me, we have to check every nut and bolt. These pieces of equipment run 24 hours a day for a year at a time before we take them down, and things come loose, things break. We're also swapping the primary clarifiers. I can go on, but I don't know how much you folks want to hear. I'm a little passionate about it. So that's where we're at with some of that stuff. And, of course, we have the projects that we're working on with Great Brook. We hope to go out to bid very shortly. We'll be picking dates within the next couple of weeks. And writing the scope for Sparkle Street replacement. Any questions?
Councilor Finger.
Todd, Donald, good evening, sirs.
Good evening.
So I'm not sure everybody understood what GRIT is when it comes into transportation. If you don't, maybe we can explain that a little bit to them.
Certainly, yeah. We just put in a brand new Headworks building. It used to be outside. The Headworks building is designed for one purpose. People have a problem understanding on how to use a toilet, so they flush a lot of garbage down it. We have two primary sources of treatment. Grit is primarily sand from failed portions of the collection system. You're repotting your spider plant and all that dirt. Well, it comes to us. Eggshells, broken glass, things of that nature. Anything heavy that can settle out is considered grit. There's going to be screws, batteries, kids' toys, you name it. It's all mixed in there. Then the other portion is the screenings. We're good on the screenings because the upgrade actually, that would have been a special waste for us. But we purchased part of the device to in order for us to make it municipal out of the special waste category, it had to be bagged. So we purchased those. The equipment hasn't arrived yet because everything's on back order. And my staff and I went out and we MacGyvered a setup so we can actually turn that waste. And the screenings, that would be plastic wrappers, candy wrappers, tampon applicators, condoms, cigarette butts, all the stuff that floats comes out on that portion of it. So that's also a special waste, but we're lucky because we're now actually putting that out with the household trash instead of taking that to Manchester as well. Our next scheduled cleaning of grit is going to be this spring. We can have anywhere between 20 to 40 yards of this product we're going to have to get out of here. If we don't get it out, it overloads the system. It'll leave our grit channel, go into our primary clarifiers, where it'll destroy all our pumps and equipment. Our pumps are made out of rubber diaphragms, and that material would just destroy it. So we have to stay on top of it. We like to clean it in the spring and the fall because of the odors. It's a very odorous job. It doesn't smell pretty to take this stuff out, as you probably
Thank you,
know
Todd.
firsthand.
So another question I got, you said you mentioned a town in Mass.
Yes.
Is that can you give us the name of that? And are we going to?
I don't. It's a secret. I had.
Okay. So I guess I can't ask you. Are we going to haul it? Or
I had to go through a contractor. I was.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
You can stop right there, my friend.
Okay.
I appreciate that. The cake, I know that we dry it out a lot better than Hartford does, MDC. Yes. There's no doubt about it. So the unfortunate thing is we dry it out, let's say at a 70% ratio, and we bring it down to them. They put it back in their main systems, and they try to dry it out to a certain thing they got. Have you thought, I'm sure you have, and again, you are excellent, and I like you a lot, but hauling it by liquid instead of cake?
Well, liquid, then you're hauling the weight of water. Right now, we're hauling out 22 ton of dry product a day at approximately 24 to 25% solids. So the drier it is, the less water you're hauling, and water can be very expensive to haul.
Yeah, definitely. Because I know years ago we were looking at that from hauling it from that tank as liquid and Class A, and also having the Class A license. That's a tough thing too. So.
Our product, we're able to, with the gravity thickeners, to get it up to about 3% solid. So you can imagine how many trucks it would take a day to haul a liquid product.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Cindy? Councilor Mangini.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For all your hard work and for delivering a wonderful presentation. You've answered the question that actually Doug brought forward on the special waste. My big concern would be the state is not helpful, or they're washing their hands from this issue.
Pretty much, yes, because there is technology. We can put in machines that can clean this product and turn it into a municipal waste. but it's a huge expense.
So if that's the case, have we applied for grant funding? Are we looking for a means to help our town get through that process? Because this is obviously extremely important.
Not formally. We were only hit with a notice a couple months ago, so we've been in panic scrambling mode at this point in time while we're trying to get everything put together.
We were, all the cities and towns that brought their stuff to Manchester, along with the state, were notified at the same time. It wasn't, so it was just a few months ago, and it was, okay, everybody got the notice, and we're closed, have a nice day, bye.
So the state has shut the door on us, essentially.
It wasn't the state that shut the plant down, as Manchester made the
Okay.
decision to not
Okay.
operate it anymore.
So and you said you're working through the process. There are other avenues to explore?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay.
There's plenty of avenues to but they all take time. An upgrade would take a long time. We'd have to go to design,
Okay.
build, and it's not going to be an easy design if we choose to go that route.
And you'll keep us informed
Yes.
as you go along. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Councilor Nelson?
Okay, if Manchester's the only town that's been taking it, we're going to be forced to deal with this sooner than later. Shouldn't we get out in front of it? I understand, like you said, it's going to take a lot of time to do this, but if every other town in Connecticut's going to be doing the same thing with supply and demand right now, I mean, maybe we should really look at starting this and getting this project going before we can't find a place to get rid of it.
I do not disagree. The town of Vernon is doing an upgrade right now. They actually shut their upgrade down because of this notification, and they're doing a very big change order while they put in this equipment so they can get out of this problem. This happened to 110 facilities simultaneously this year. It's been out there for 10, 20 years, and I haven't seen one single facility attempt to get ahead of it, I'm afraid. So government, we tend to be reactive.
Right, and I want to be proactive because otherwise it ends up costing us. And then I could see it now. We're going to start getting fined because we can't get rid of it because we can't get the equipment because it's back ordered because there's 50 towns in front of us waiting for it. So, I mean, I would be interested in seeing, rough numbers of what this is going to cost the town. And I'm just speaking for myself, of course. But next is the Weymouth Road pump station. We had a conversation about that, and we all know the issues that are going on out there, but it was mentioned that every time it rains, that pump station runs 3-4 days in a row. Well, that's a serious problem because this town has spent millions trying to keep drainage and groundwater out of the sewer system so we're not paying to treat it. Now, that pump station is only for Pheasant Hill?
No.
No. So with the new camera equipment, will we be able to look in the sewer lines and find out where this groundwater is coming from and try to eliminate it?
Possibly, yes. We may be able to locate it.
I mean, a big problem is people tying their sump pumps, into the city sewer. I do know some unscrupulous builders will tie their footing drains into the sewer and nobody knows it. But with a camera, I mean, shut the water off to the house, and if there's still water coming out of the house, we know there's a problem.
Correct.
So, that would cut down drastically on that pump station stress that it's under. And then I appreciate Ellen, everything she's done to work with the gentleman on Weymouth Road. But he had a conversation with you, Todd, and you said it was going to be extensive engineering and stuff like that to design this system. And I personally feel that the town is partially responsible for this. We can't supply him with a sewer, that he ran the sewer main in front of his property and everything. He's willing to take on the expense of the solution we talked about, putting a storage tank in, pumping only at 2 o'clock in the morning when the pump station's. He's willing to pay for all of that. But to create a whole design of this system, he wants to go to the company, say, look, I have an occupancy of 70 people. This is the pump he needs. Submit it to you. And go forward with it.
It's not that simple. It's kind of a complicated hydraulics issue. We have a can lift station currently with 48 homes on it, and it's only pumping 50 gallons a minute. I mean, all it's going to take is several people flushing toilets or in a shower, and then you have an event with 70 people at it, food trucks, music, beer.
Yeah, but if he's only pumping at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Correct. We had that discussion, yes.
Right. So that would eliminate.
That was one of my suggestions, that perhaps he can design a system that will work with our facility and only pump. It'll be an equalization basin. There's three options. You could do an equalization basin. We also discussed an engineered septic system like I have in my backyard where it pumps up to a leaching field I had to put in. Or just a plain old holding tank. When a light comes on, you have to call a vac truck to come and suck it out.
Right.
So those are the three options without replacing the lift station.
And he's willing to do the storage tank on a timer, 500 gallons.
Correct.
A toilet's 1.3 gallons, 70 people. His brewery is a 10-gallon washout. So even if he did 2 runs a day, that's 20 gallons and 70 occupancy only on the weekend. It's only pumping at 2 o'clock in the morning, so it really shouldn't affect the pump station. He's willing to do all of that and work with us, to try to postpone the problem, because the problem at that pump station has to get fixed and addressed, or at least we got to address the groundwater that keeps, inundating the system. I don't know how many other pump stations, but it's a lot of money to treat groundwater, and there's no need for it. So I'm glad to hear about the camera truck, and hopefully that can pay for itself in the future. But I'm just looking at, working with this gentleman, the town working with him, instead of reinventing the wheel just to put this 500-gallon pump system in.
The other thing too, Councilor, is that he wanted to reuse one of the lines that he has now. So that's why we were suggesting using an engineer to make sure that when that's going on, he has the proper safeguards, that it's not going to go back into his home or the next person up. So that's what I said. It's a little more complicated than just having that tank and just pumping upstream, because again, he wants to reuse what he has instead of digging a new line from that home westerly to that manhole, which is that's a completely different situation. That's straightforward. Reusing the line that he has currently existing for his personal home and for a lot of that other stuff is not easy to fix, because it's only a certain size pipe, finite amount of liquid can go through that, and there has to be safeguards on the other side to make sure, again, he doesn't get backed up in his house if something failed or if it overtook the system there.
Or the brewery doesn't get backed up from his house.
Either one.
It's a forced main, right?
That's where the tricky part of that engineering equation comes from. If it was a separate line, a separate animal, that's straightforward.
Beautiful.
Reusing the line, totally different set of rules and ballgame for engineering and hydraulics.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for clarification.
Yep.
All set.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I should also say thank you, Mr. Masterson, for coming. Every time you come and speak in front of the council, it's quite elucidating. Not that you aren't as well, Mr. Nunes, but as I understand this grid issue, so there are really 3 options. One is build a new cleaning plant for multi-million-dollar figure. I would also like to know what that might be, because there are maybe a limited number of options. Option 2 is to continue to rely on this facility in Massachusetts and continue cleaning on our side to some extent. What other infrastructure is needed in town for that option 2 to really work, provided that the plant in Massachusetts continues to accept our waste?
If they continue to accept, and I'm not sure how this is going to go down, because I wasn't able to secure this between us and the landfill. I was able to get this offer from one of the companies that used to clean the grit channels for us. And I called them all, actually, and to see what they could come up with, because they've been scrambling trying to find people. So this particular company, it's ESI, Environmental Solutions Service, thank you, South Windsor. They are the ones that secured this deal. So it's a 1-year deal, and it comes with a bunch of stipulations. Paint filter test, which means it can't have 1 drop of water in it. If you take the sample and you stick it in like a coffee filter, that's actually a test, so it has to be that dry. When we take it out of there, it's not that dry. It takes a long time. It's really hard for us. Well, we have to go out there and flip that product like 2-3 times with our Bobcat on the washdown pad. Then if it rains, we start all over again. And it's something. I don't know. We don't have a lot of options at the moment. We're still in the exploratory phase of what we can do. And I've been looking at equipment and starting to crunch numbers and how much it would cost for us to treat it here. I don't anticipate that to be cheap. It would actually be another building we'd have to put up for this equipment, if we even have the footprint to be able to do so. The entire grit channels would have to be jackhammered out and pitched so you could actually get it to go into a pump to get it into, so we can actually pump it up to the equipment that would do the cleaning. So currently we do not have infrastructure for this type of equipment. It would take a lot of engineering, I think, and some creative thinking to make it work on our end.
Thank you. And I guess the third option is maybe the state reclassifies this stuff, but
That would be wonderful.
yeah.
I just,
How likely is it that there might be some other facility that would take this stuff? It sounds like you looked all over Massachusetts.
Manchester's been the only facility that we've been using for more than 15 years now. They were the only ones left in the state, and yeah, I don't have an answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, when we were first looking at that, we were calling all of our environmental companies that we normally deal with, and they all had the same response. They're all trying to find stuff, and they're all going nowhere quick. And that's, again, for ESI to actually have a connection up in Massachusetts, that was a home run. I mean, even just that one little foot in the door was a home run compared to all the bad news we were getting from all of our other environmental consultants that there's just nowhere to bring this stuff right now.
And the last question I had is, so you described this as a trial basis. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
ESI told us that the landfill was going to take it, but this is only a trial basis, and they were not going to promise any more than 1 year. The material is very odorous, very odorous. So that's why I was told Manchester has decided that due to numerous complaints, they were just done taking it.
Well, thank you. I know it's no easy answers here, but it's helpful to at least know this problem exists and try to figure out a solution. Thank you.
Councilor Ludwig.
Welcome, gentlemen. So curious, any idea what some of these other towns are doing now that they can't bring it? Just what are they?
Well, the one town I mentioned, they're changing their upgrade to include this equipment.
Is there a way, if it's not us, where we can join some of these towns to help them with an upgrade? And is there federal money to tap into?
Not that I'm aware of at the moment.
No.
There's the listserv that the T2 Center has it for for the WPCF side of it things, and everybody's what do we do?
Right.
And there's nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
I received emails. It was an email chain with 110 wastewater treatment facilities in Connecticut, and I shared it with Donald. It's basically panic. Nobody knows what to do. It's fending for themselves at the moment.
Unrelated question, Donald. Great Brook, where is Great Brook?
Behind the Legion.
Okay, that's
Dunkin'
sorry.
Donuts
Yeah.
Legion. Yep.
So, thank you. So, other than the $2 million for ARPA, how much is the Great Brook project going to cost? And I think you mentioned Sparkle as well.
Yeah, it's going to be the Great Brook's going to be 2.5, 3, and Sparkle's going to be 2, 2.5. So,
Do we have to do this over assuming multiple years, or I just curious? I mean, because if it doesn't have to go to referendum to finish this project, or are we doing it over multiple years?
we do have. We have been putting away money for in the WPCF capital
Right.
side for. Like pump station upgrades, we've been putting away like $500,000 a year for many years now. So we do have almost we have 1.928 million in that right now. So we do have money from that to if we're running low, or if we need to backfeed with that, we have that as a
Got
backup.
it, okay. So it's just those two. But we have how many pump stations? 6 or 16, right?
16.
What condition are those other 14?
They all have to be replaced.
At about
Some of them are
million
way
a pop?
past their life expectancy.
Yeah.
We just had completed a study. We had Wright Pierce come in and do a lift station analysis for us. We have some work to do.
Some of the stations, like again, everybody knows down at South River Street. I mean, that's a monster station.
Right.
Great Brook is a monster. But the other ones, like on Enfield Terrace, It's only for Enfield. It's this very small one, and it's just, they range in size, they range in style. Some of them are so the old some that are just don't exist anymore. They're just so old, and some of them are, again, there's all varieties in states of repair and disrepair and functionality, but they're all working right now, and all the generators are working, everything's working, so we're just trying to be proactive.
Yeah, and knock on wood, the berm is almost done.
Hopefully
All right.
2 weeks will start.
All right.
Hopefully.
That's
Gotta
good.
go to Grand Track
That's really good news.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, and I'm sure that with these 16 pump stations that we have, the maintenance plan that you have in place, every couple of years, or we will have to address what pumps are going to be needed moving forward. So we have the Sparkle area. Can you just expand upon that just a little bit? I know that this project there is approximately between $2 and $2.5 million. Okay, so it's another big, huge, the Sparkle area pump.
Sparkle's a very old lift station. It uses it's a pot station. It uses antiquated technology. We can't even buy replacement parts for it anymore. We have to manufacture stuff at machine shops or internally as we fix it. Most of the station is underground, and it's going to be it's a big project. It's not an easy one to fix. It's pretty deep too. It's not as deep as some of ours, but we have one lift station. I can't remember the name of it. It's 60 feet below ground.
Wow.
We do a lot of confined space work in our department on a weekly basis.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And the last thing I just want to mention is the odor control building. Does that have to be constructed, or is that already constructed? Because you said that you wanted to start dry gridding.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is, I've talked it over my staff, and we think we can do this. There's an odor control line that draws air from the Headworks building that's close to where the washdown pad is located. What I'd like to do is put a T in it, tap off it, and bring it over, and then put up a temporary hoop house for the year. So when we do put it in there, we have some kind of odor control going on, so we're not getting in trouble for excessive odors.
Okay, so that would be a temporary unit that...
Correct. It's all temporary.
So it wouldn't be a permanent structure?
No, not permanent. No, we will bolt it to the washdown pad so a windstorm doesn't take it away, of course, but it would be temporary.
Okay.
And we're going to do it all in-house.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Anybody else have any other questions? Well, thank you. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Todd and Donald.
All right. And just one more thing, just so you know, the things that we find that come through, I just want to leave you with, not too long ago, we pulled out a George Costanza puffy coat from the Muffin Monster. Yeah, it was a full North Face puffy coat, so full coat. Just throwing it out there. Just think about that one.
Well, thank you very much. Moving on to item 4, the resolution to approve the change in use for 11 Pearl Street from commercial to residential effective the next WPC billing cycle. And the resolution states, whereas 11 Pearl Street was the Thompsonville Fire District firehouse for several years, and whereas the Thompsonville Fire District's firehouse is now located at 35 North Main Street, and whereas the water line servicing 11 Pearl Street has a 2-inch meter, which has a base quarterly charge of $312 per the town sewer service fee schedule for fiscal year 22-23. And whereas Patrick and Jeanette Talarita purchased 11 Pearl Street in July 2021 and have converted the building into a single-family residence, and whereas pursuant to the Town of Enfield Sewer Usage Adjustment Policy, subsection D, Mr. and Mrs. Talarita have requested that the base quarterly charge be adjusted to reflect the rate for a 5-inch meter, which size is the typical size for a single-family residence. Now there be resolved that the base quarterly charge as set forth in the sewer use fee schedule shall be adjusted to reflect the rate for a 5-inch meter for 11 Pearl Street. Be it further resolved that the adjustment shall commence as the date of this resolution and shall be effective only for the period that 11 Pearl Street is used primarily as a single-family residence.
So moved.
Councilor Mangini, and a second by Deputy Mayor Sakala. Discussion. Councilor Nelson.
So my first issue with this is we're not planning and zoning. We don't have the ability to change this building from commercial to residential. If they would like, they can go get a change, zone change, and then at that point they can come back and put a 5/8 meter on the building, and like all the residential houses do, because I know if I put a 2-inch main on my residential house or a 2-inch meter, I'm going to be charged accordingly. Doesn't matter whether I'm residential or commercial. Just as they can take the 2-inch meter out and bolt in a 5/8 meter. They don't have to change any plumbing in the building. All it will do is lessen the flow going into the building. It's not going to lessen the pressure or anything like that. I also know when they came to us at Planning and Zoning, they had stated how they're going to be, I don't know if it was a bed or breakfast, but they're going to be having people come and rent it for nights. So it's not a residential property. And then in the future, they're looking to do some commercial business here. So like I said, we don't have the ability to change it from commercial to residential. Planning and zoning does. And if they want to do that, have at it. Then come back to us. I'd be all in favor of them reducing the meter, and they can pay the regular meter fee. But how do you take a commercial building that you bought, a commercial building, and then come to the town and expect us to drop the fee when you don't want to drop to a residential status? I'm all set. Thank you.
Councilor Mangini.
I respectfully disagree with Councilman Nelson in the sense that although this building is zoned commercial, the Tallaritas did purchase the property with the intent of using it as a residence, and in the future doing a mixed use. And our resolution clearly states that the adjustment shall commence as the date of this resolution and be effective only for the period that 11 Pearl Street is used primarily as a single-family residence, which essentially means that once the commercial piece fits in, then it will go back to a change. So I fully support this resolution. Thank you.
Councilor Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think this suggestion really requires a zone change. I mean, we are meeting here, within our capacity as the WPCA. I think this is a matter of equity as well as incentivizing development of this property. We have plenty of buildings in Thompsonville which have historic uses, but we want revitalized. We want a thriving economy down there. And I think this one, being a former firehouse, maybe turning into a bar restaurant makes a lot of sense. I think this small change will incentivize that. But if they don't follow through with that, we're not going to keep this forever. So I think it's fair on both sides. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Finger.
No, go ahead. No, Doug, go first.
All right, so I agree and respectfully with everybody else, with Councilor Nelson. This is a commercial building. There's no doubt about it. It's already labeled that. It is what it is. They chose to move in, and I love the Tallaritas. They know that. I supported Pat when he was mayor, when they ran, when he had the majority here on his dais, and I will always support him and his wife. But in the case, you have to be fair to everybody, and just because he is an excellent person, he's a well-known person, and his family's well-known. His mom, everybody did a great job here in Enfield. I don't want this to turn into a political issue, and it is, in my opinion. And I think that we should keep it as is, and I agree with Councilor Nelson saying that this needs to go before Planning and Zoning. Now, if they chose to change it, let them do it. Now, again, I have a lot of respect for the Telleritas. I will know that one of my neighbors is a Tellerita, and I will say that we need to keep things the way that they are, because if this was anybody different, all of us would be saying, go to planning and zoning. We have an ex-commissioner of planning and zoning on our board, Councilor Nelson. He knows what the rules are. He knows how it goes. None of us up here knows how to do what he did. He's got the experience. I think we need to listen to him, and let's do things right. And rightfully, again, not showing any disrespect to anybody, and I don't know how the rest of us feel here on this whole dais, but I know we're all trying to support somebody who's very important to this town, and I fully understand that, but we have to make it right for everybody in this town, the way that things are. If we're going to tell other people things go to planning and zoning, and he says as an ex-commissioner, this needs to go planning and zoning, I believe him, and that's where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Oh, Councilor Pisder.
I can appreciate the fact that he was trying to take this building and revitalize Thompsonville and as a bar, restaurant. That's what I originally thought that was going in there, and I respect that, and I'm grateful he wants to be part of the revitalization. And the fact that he's living above it, that's an added bonus. But he bought a building that was a commercial building. We are setting a precedent if we let this go through. So the next person that comes in and buys a building, they're going to come before us and say, we want the same thing. He can make this into a residential by just simply changing the meter size. And then there's no question about it. It's a plumbing issue. He goes in, he changes the meter size. It now flows like a residential. Then he comes back when if or when he ever puts his brewery or restaurant in, and then puts in the meter he needs. He can put in 2 separate meters, a meter for residential, a meter for the business. I don't want to set a precedent moving forward with the revitalization of Thompsonville that we have people coming before us constantly saying, well, we bought a commercial building, but we're going to live upstairs. And so I'm against setting the precedent. So I will have to vote against this, as I did before.
Councilor Santinella.
Yeah, thank you. I am supporting this. I think this is a temporary fix for him during this transition period, and I think it's a reasonable request. I want to reiterate what Councilor Hopkins said. We are sitting here as the planning and the Water Pollution Control Authority, not as the council or P&C, and I think that it is well within our right to make this change. And I don't think that this is particularly special treatment. I think it's an unusual circumstance that requires a special action more than special treatment. And if there are other people who have a similar circumstance and want to come and ask for the same accommodation, we can certainly grant that to them. So I am going to support this. I think that the bigger picture, the work that's being done there, and the implications to a neighborhood, which is important to us, overweighs the nuances of sort of the extenuating circumstances. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilor Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, I welcome anybody who has a great idea for developing Thompsonville to come in front of the council. I think many of us up here are very interested in its continued development, and we will absolutely make some changes, remove some of the red tape that prevents that. Development in Thompsonville is like a small flame right now. We really want to protect it. We want to foster it so that we can have a booming center of town again. I think that's really the takeaway here. I think this is an easy thing to do, and I think we need to continue doing things like this because it's fair, equitable, and helps us really revitalize that part of town.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Finger, and then my turn.
I got you.
Okay.
So mine's just quick. I want to correct my statements. I should have said Commissioner Nelson instead of Councilor Nelson on my statements. So if we can make that change in the minutes, please. I'd very much appreciate that because we hard to go again. Just want to make it correct for everybody, and I still think that we should not do it at this time. Thank you.
I'm going to be supportive of this, regardless of thinking that it's a political ploy. I'm looking at the revitalization of Thompsonville. He's taken an old firehouse, and he did make it into a residence with the idea of commercial use, whether it's a pub, brewery, but that's somewhere down the road. This topic is just something that hasn't just been brought up this year. This topic has been brought up since he's moved in. I've had conversations with him. This is something that has been ignored by WPC. It's been ignored for quite some time. This is a temporary fix for somebody who's doing something good for our town. And he's made a commitment. He's made a commitment to a residence. He's made a commitment to helping down in this particular area. I'm supportive of this. Unfortunately, the firehouse has a 4-inch meter, and it's not his fault that it's there. And this is a temporary fix for him. And if somewhere down the road that the single residence turns into a pub, then the rate would go back to what it is. But I am in favor of this, and we will move forward with that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just for the edification of the council, and a reminder that at the July 5th meeting, you voted with a resolution to amend the WPCA dispute process. Town Code 86-204, subsection C, allows you as the Water Pollution Control Authority to amend the dispute resolution process based on the town manager's recommendation. So when you did that, you amended the sewer usage adjustment policy and added a new section, Section D, change in use. If a property is converted from a non-residential use to a primary single-family residential use, the base quarterly charge may be adjusted to reflect the residential use. So you are within your powers as WPCA to take this action. Councilor Nelson is correct that if this was a planning and zoning matter, there would be a change of use. We are not there yet, and the plans for commercial use in the future, nothing has been solidified as far as I'm concerned. But my recommendation in order to make the policy change in July was based on the fact that we have to do everything in our power to enable appropriate redevelopment in the Thompsonville area. That is why we are working with Mr. Salas to redo all of the lines in part of his site plan application. It's why we are invested in the Strand and Lamagna. And anybody else that comes through as well, we will take it on a case-by-case basis. That's a very difficult location based on the urban renewal that happened earlier. And so you're probably going to see a lot more very unique type situations as people come forward. In fact, Mark's Restaurant was one that you tackled earlier in the spring because they were non-conforming in terms of the Public Works barrel policy. So I've always felt that you tackle them as they come with appropriate policy. You have the policy in place based on the July 5th resolution that you adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Sheila, roll call, please.
I'm sorry, one question out of that.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, question. Just one question. She said.
Councilor Ludwig.
Just curious, has any money been spent on the property, TIF money or any, I know there was grants that were, what happened in July, I missed the meeting, but wasn't there some money that state money that could be used for that building in a commercial sense, I thought? Is that correct, or is it a different building?
Which building, Councilor Ludwig?
11 Pearl Street.
I would have to look that up. I don't recall
I thought there was a
anything.
special meeting in July where the council voted for state money, part of some development money, and that was one of the properties in mine.
Oh,
And it is zoned commercial. I think that's Commissioner Nelson's point. Again, so whether they're using it as a single family, it's zoned commercial. I mean, that's what it's zoned.
I think that you might be referencing the Community Investment Fund grant
Correct.
application. So we were actually notified late on Friday that we did not receive that grant. The only people who received that grant were the large cities. So we are going to be pushing our application forward to the next
So
round.
is that property being pushed for a grant for business development?
It was not called out specifically, but it was an example that we used in our application of someone who would be eligible for participation in that grant process.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sheila, roll call.
Vice Chair Sakala.
4.
Chairman Crissati.
4.
Commissioner Despard.
4.
Commissioner Finger,
Against.
Commissioner Hopkins,
For.
Commissioner Ludwig,
Against.
Commissioner Mangini,
Or
Commissioner Nelson,
Against.
Commissioner Pisner,
Against.
Commissioner Santinella,
For.
and Commissioner Ungary.
against.
That is 6 in favor, 5 against, no abstentions.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Commissioner Nelson and Commissioner Sakala. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.